Happy Friday, everybody. This is There's No Crying in Crochet, where we talk about all of your frustrations and try to give you some help. I
Mhm.
am Debbie from Madam Stitch, and this is my cohort in crime,
Biz from Busy Crochet. Hi, everybody.
and we'd like to welcome you to our podcast today. We are going to get to all of the happy subject later on, but for
Mhm.
right now, we're going to take care of the business. And that
Yeah.
means that if you subscribe to our YouTube channels, which would be Busy Crochet and Madam Crochet,
Mhm.
you get notifications every time we come out with a new tutorial or new video. Now, I want to give you the 411 right now. We're about to start a CAL. Yay!
Yes,
And
we are.
as long as things go the way we plan, Biz and I are going to be doing a brief video interview style with each other each
Mhm.
time a new square or section comes out. That's going to be a whole month of us. So you want
Whether
to
you
make sure
want
that
it or
you
not.
yeah, I know. You need to make sure that you subscribe and like and all of that stuff. And
Mhm.
we love talking to you during these podcasts. We really do, because it makes this so much more fun. So if you're watching on Facebook today, please make sure that you give StreamYard permission to display your name so we can see your name in the comments and interact with you in a personal way. So we
Mhm.
appreciate that when you do that. Okay, it is time to get started. And we always start with Biz, what's up this week?
This week has taken forever to get to Friday. We were talking about,
Yes, it
it
has.
was
Oh my gosh.
it was like the month of January was simultaneously super long and super fast. And then I thought, well, February is going to fly right by. Not the case. This week has been exceedingly long. It's just been really busy, but not busy.
Mhm.
And I felt like I was the hamster on the wheel, but not getting anywhere. It's just the whole week was like that.
It's one of those.
Yes.
Uh, I keep waiting for, I always look forward to January because it feels like, okay, the Christmas rush is done and
Yeah.
things can get back to normal. That has not happened yet. And this week, we had Daisy in on Monday to get groomed, which is no big deal, but of course she hates it. Um, so that's traumatic for her. But then on Tuesday, she went in for some minor surgery to have a couple of masses removed and get her
Mm,
teeth cleaned.
yeah.
And now she has to wear a cone until the 19th. She's so
No.
cute. She just has that look of, why are you subjecting me to the horrors of this cone every time we put it on? Um, but
I
anyway,
thought you
it's
loved
like
me.
we
You just
cannot
proved you
have
hate
a
me.
dull week. There's just, I don't know what it is, but we're attracting all the things that are making life just
Yeah.
a little bit frantic around here. But otherwise, the weather is starting to warm up. The sun has finally been
Yes.
shining this
Yes.
week. So I am so looking forward to spring. All right, let's
Yes.
see here.
I'm even looking forward to it here in Florida. It does feel a lot like Florida, like spring in Florida all the time. But right now we're going through a really funky winter and it's been really chilly. And now it's starting to get warm, but now it's getting into that cloudy all the time, hazy, rainy. I'm still waiting for the sun. I'm so anxious for the sun to come out.
Oh,
I know
well,
everybody
I
calls
should send some
Florida the
down to
Sunshine
you.
State, and it's just not. Oh, hey,
I think it might
little
depend
bit
upon
more.
where you are.
Yes, and I think that the sunshine happens more over in the peninsula, as opposed to the
Mhm.
Panhandle, because we're very
Yep.
neatly tucked underneath Alabama, and it's just, it's still pretty cloudy over here. I mean, I'm not complaining. It's just not as sunny as I had thought that it was going to be.
Well, every once in a while, I'll just send some rays of sunshine down your way.
So, yes, there you go.
Yeah.
That'll work for me.
All right, we are all caught up. So it is time to get into our crochet skills episode
Yes.
today, which is all
Mhm.
about puffs, bobbles, popcorns, and clusters.
Yes.
So we decided to tackle this subject because I think they get confused so often. They are made similarly,
Mhm,
and not all designers adhere to what the standard definition is. And I have to be honest, there have been a couple of times when I've called a popcorn a bobble or something like that.
mhm,
But they have specific construction and they have specific decorative qualities that they add to the fabric. So we
mhm,
wanted to just break that all down for you today and let you see what
mhm,
those stitches look like. Um,
mhm.
Now, Biz, I put this in our notes, but what are these stitches? These
So
stitches
there
all kind of are in the same group.
Mhm. Yeah, no, they're a raised textured stitch that looks like a little, a circle, a dot, a bobble, like something, it just raises it gives you texture. I mean, that's what I always think of. And when I'm going for texture in something, I always look for
Mhm.
those stitches that raise up off of the flat surface.
Yeah, and the official definition is simply working several stitches together. So technically,
Yeah.
in this category, we could have decreases like double crochet three together or something like that. But these are
Yes.
specific stitches that are worked
Mhm,
together to create a decorative or textured look to
mhm,
the fabric. It adds just a
mhm.
little pop, as we say.
Yes. Yes.
Um, I've already mentioned what the difference is. One of the things that you'll see as we're going through our presentation is that clusters and puffs tend to lay a little more flush with the fabric. So
Mhm,
they add a little bit more visual interest to the fabric,
mhm. Or
whereas
thickness.
and thickness, right?
Mhm,
A lot of times in granny squares, I'll see other designers use puffs at the corners that give
mhm,
those corners just a little bit of a raised quality to them,
mhm,
and they're really fun to see in a granny square. But the bobbles and the popcorns
mhm,
absolutely stand up from
mhm. Yeah.
the fabric.
Yes, they do
All
poke
right.
out.
They do poke out. So let me get us started with our presentation. I thought it might be nice if you could see, instead of just listening to our voices, what these stitches were all about, because some of the differences are very subtle, but the result is kind of dramatic. So
Mhm.
I put together this slideshow that so you can see what all of these stitches are. We're going to start with, well, we talked about these. What are
Yeah.
these stitches? They're two or more stitches joined together. Sometimes they're joined at the top, sometimes they're joined at the bottom, sometimes they're
Mhm,
joined all the way around.
mhm.
And we can include decreases in this category, but decreases are really more functional than they are decorative.
Decorative,
It
right,
can
yeah.
be decorative, but
Mhm.
usually if you see it referred to in the pattern as double crochet three together, we're talking about reducing the number of stitches rather than adding a decorative quality to your
Right,
fabric.
right.
All right, so here we go. All right, the puff stitch. Um, Biz, do you use the puff stitch much in your crochet designs?
I use it more when I am, okay, so there's one called the brick stitch, which uses a puff stitch, but it goes sideways, or
Oh, right.
a blocked bead. It's if you're looking in one of
Uh-huh.
your, stitch dictionaries, it's usually called a blocked bead. And it's a puff stitch that sticks sideways. Now, it depends on what I'm using it for. Sometimes the front part of it is actually flat, flush up with the material. If you flip it over though, the back of it has just this little hump where all
Yeah.
of your stitches go. And a lot of times, like if I'm using it I use that one to make bricks in things. Because I make that toy bags and stuff like that. So if I'm looking to create a brick, I will usually use that one because it's very uniform in the way that it's set up, and then I'll flip it over and I'll use that little bump side because it looks like stones on the other side.
Oh,
So the
very
front side
cool.
looks like a brick and the back side looks like a stone.
That's really cool.
Yeah, they're
Uh, I
fun.
I have a cowl pattern out to testers right now that I found this stitch pattern online and fell in love with it. It's called Puffs and Shells,
Oh,
but
yeah.
the shells are really three double crochet together,
Mhm.
three double crochet in the same stitch or space. I call it puffs and grannies.
I was
And the
gonna say it's almost
first
like a granny stitch.
it's so I even talked to the designer and she goes, "Yeah, use it. Do call it whatever you want. I just, I'm glad to see somebody using it." But the first row of the 4-row repeat, you single crochet, chain 4, and then puff in the same stitch. And it
Okay.
creates this round of, when it's combined with the other rounds of the stitch pattern, it's a really cool, very textured, subtly textured sort of um, fabric and
Yeah,
very lightweight. I love the
yeah,
way the puff stitch doesn't add weight to the fabric in this
right,
case.
right. It
So
just adds interest.
exactly. So technically, a puff stitch is a group of half double crochets joined at both the top and bottom of the stitch. So what we mean by half double crochet, you're not really going to be able to see any half double crochets in the puff
Right.
stitch, but you yarn over, insert your hook in the indicated stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, which is exactly how you start a half double crochet. But
Yeah.
then instead of completing that half double crochet, you do that same thing 2 more times, or honestly, the puff stitch can be as big or small as the designer has decided. It can have I've seen puffs that have, like, 5 times you do that, and it just becomes this big blob of yarn.
Yeah.
Um, but typically, I think 3 times is what we usually do.
It's pretty common.
Yeah.
Yep, because by then you're getting a fairly thick stitch out of it.
Mhm. So in the top picture, you can see, the 7 loops on the hook,
Mhm.
and all of those yarn overs and insert the hook are done into the same stitch, and then the very last step is to pull yarn over and pull it through all the loops to create that puffy texture.
And I have actually worked one recently where you don't go through all 7, you go through the first 6 and then you finish off, with by going through the last 2 loops, which actually closes off that puff on the
Ah,
top
yeah?
with a single crochet. So, I mean, you may run into things like that as well.
Right, so there are variations. You really just this is one of those stitches. All of these stitches would
Yeah.
probably be included in the special stitches section of a pattern
Yeah,
because designers will modify these stitches for
for
their own
sure.
personal use.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have put here sometimes a chain is work to close the puff.
Yeah.
Now I tech edit as well, and um, I've run into this. It's not an issue, it's just a clarification. In
Uh-huh.
the pattern, the designer has to specify whether that chain that finishes off the puff is counted as a chain space or it's skipped because that
That's a good
affects your
point.
stitch count, right?
Yeah.
Um, so you really have to pay attention to that when you, as the maker, are reading the pattern.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, anything else you'd like to offer about the puff stitch, Ms. Biz?
No, I think you hit all the points.
All right. Next on our list is the bobble. This is one of my favorites. This is really cool. Um, in this one, it's a group of double crochet or longer. You can do double crochets, treble crochet. You can do however long you want those stitches to be, but typically they're double crochet at that are joined at both the top and the bottom of the stitch.
Mhm.
Um, this one is worked typically on the wrong side of the fabric so that it pops out to the front.
Mhm.
So you would typically be working this on the wrong side of the fabric.
Mhm. Because when you're making it and because you have a note in here that says that there's usually a shorter stitch in
Mhm,
front of and a shorter stitch behind, because when you work it, it actually just pushes it to the
mhm.
other side of the material. So that's why a lot of times people will design with the bobble happening on the wrong side of the thing so that when you flip it over, it's on the right side. Now, I have run into where a designer actually designed it so that you were doing the bobble, but then you had to push it to the front. And I've found that I don't really care for that only because it sucked back into the work.
Mhm.
And it became like it wasn't the texture that it was supposed to be.
Right, it naturally wants to go to the backside of whatever side you were making it. So if you make it on the wrong side, it naturally wants to bow out to the front.
Yes, it
So if you
does.
try to go against that, it's continually gonna just flatten itself out.
It does, yes.
All right, so in this picture, typically what you do is you start a double crochet, and instead of completing the double crochet with the last step, you start another double crochet, get to the
Mhm,
last step, start a third double crochet, and
mhm,
get to the last step, and then you pull the yarn through all of those loops,
mhm.
which creates in the bottom, it looks a lot like a cluster in this case.
I have a
Um,
really bad habit of calling these clusters in my work.
well, I will yeah, I have a whole lovey made out of what arguably should be baubles by this definition, but clusters tend to lay flatter,
Mhm.
right? And we'll see what the difference is, but I think clusters and baubles tend to get interchanged.
Yeah,
Bobble again can have more than three. So if you want your bobble to be more prominent, you add double crochets to that and it
yeah.
pops bigger. And what you'll see in the next slide is the difference between the bobble and popcorn. This one is smooth at the top. So you'll see in that bottom picture, there's a bar
Yeah,
right under the hook that connects all of them. That's the loop that the last loop that got draped over the top.
right.
Um, you love to use bobbles, I know.
I do. I love all the chunky stitches.
Yeah, this is one I used in a baby blanket. I think I might have used the popcorn and called it a bobble. Who knows? But we live and learn.
Yeah. I do have this one in I was actually working on it the other day because I need to get new pictures of it. It's one of my oldest baby blanket patterns, and it's called the X's and O's blanket, and
Oh
this
gosh,
stitch is in it
that's awesome.
because it was one of the first texture stitches I ever learned.
Now, I tend to do fabric that has a more subtle texture to it, so I don't use a lot of baubles or popcorns, but they do have a wonderful texture to them.
Mhm.
All right, the popcorn, which is its relative, is basically three or more double crochet or taller stitches worked in the same place, but this time the double crochets are finished and
Mhm.
then connected through from the first and last stitches. Those are
Mhm.
joined. Um, and this one, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this one pops a little bit more than a bobble. It's a little
Mhm.
more in your face, so to speak.
It is, for sure. And, I believe it is in the blanket we're gonna talk about at the end.
Yay! Um, this when you complete every double
Yay.
crochet, like I said, and you remove your hook from the last stitch, poke it into the first stitch, put that loop back on and pull it through, and it almost
Mhm.
forms, I don't know if you can see it in the picture, but it
Yep.
almost forms a little cup at the front. Um,
It
and
does, yeah.
yeah, and you can finish this one off
And
with
that one
a
always pulls towards you.
it does only because you're going from front to back through that first stitch and grabbing the loop
Yep,
and coming back through. I don't think you
yep.
could pop it to the back. It would be very difficult.
It would be weird, wouldn't it?
It would look weird for sure.
Um, it took me a long time to actually make friends with a popcorn stitch because of the fact that you had to do it all in one spot and then take it out and stick it back in and pull it through, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's so slow and tedious." And I've recently you know, aren't I something? So I made friends with it though, and I actually really like the popcorn stitch because of its stability.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it has more stability than the bobble stitch. The bobble stitch has a little bit more chance of flattening into the
Yes.
fabric. The popcorn, there's no way. It's
Nope,
not
it
going
always sticks
anywhere.
out, no matter what.
And again, and this one may or may not be bookended by shorter stitches.
Hmm,
It can be worked right into the fabric because it sits right at the top of the stitch when you're finished, and
mhm,
it pops out no matter what's around it. Um,
mhm.
I think that's it. Right, so this one is done with 4, so you can see there are 4 double crochets,
Mhm.
and then in the
I
bottom when
usually I
we
usually
pulled
use 5 just because I try to get like, this is one of those ones too where you can
right?
you can go as many as you're comfortable with. A lot of, popcorns will be between 4 and 5 stitches.
Yes, and they are all those double crochets are worked in the same stitch.
Yep.
Alright. Last but not least is the
Mhm.
cluster. Now, I
Okay.
personally think this might be the most misunderstood and misdiagnosed, misnamed, you name it, miss something
Yes.
stitch in our crochet dictionary because we tend to call groups of stitches clusters no matter what they are. But
Right.
the cluster stitch is actually a specific stitch um, that gets a lot of modification. So in this
Mhm.
case, the cluster stitch is a group of stitches that are worked in consecutive stitches, not in the
Mm,
same stitch. Now,
gotcha.
the source that I used, which I'll show you in a moment when we're back on full screen, um, likens it to a double crochet three together. So really, a double crochet three together could be considered a cluster stitch. But
Mhm.
I don't know. I if it's worked that way, yes, but I like to work my clusters like the bobble, where all of those are in the same stitch,
I do too.
but it doesn't pop. So I do it. I guess I only do it with two. Right. So I actually have a square here that uses it. So this square, I don't know if
Mhm.
you can see it, but the second round are two double crochet clusters.
Okay, yeah.
And they are worked in in the same stitch. But they lay flat.
Mhm.
They don't pop, and I think it's because I have chains in between to excuse me, to make them lay flat.
Mhm. My, Irish wave blanket has 3 treble crochet clusters in them that are like that.
Oh, nice. Nice. That would be really pretty. Um, so it's 3 double crochets worked in consecutive stitches, and then you yarn over, pull
Mhm.
through all the loops. And
Yes.
sometimes that's closed off by a chain, and sometimes it's not. It just depends upon what's after it.
Yes. Yes. It's a great way to see, I look at that and I think there's, you know how you see some of those patterns that they have, like, little triangles, and then
Mhm.
there's a chain space in between? That is
Mhm.
probably what that is.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to swatch this weekend, and one of the designs I'm going to work on is a square that has what looks like mountains in it. So I'm
Nice.
gonna try using this to create
Fun.
those mountains chain in between, create a chain space,
Mhm.
and make it look like there are mountains on one round. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
The
that's awesome.
cluster stitch in all of its awesomeness.
Dun, dun, dun.
I know. All right. Anything else we want to say about any of these stitches? I can go back to a slide if you want.
I don't think so. Does anybody have any questions? Throw them in the chat.
Yeah.
But I don't have anything to add.
All right. Well, we have we have used, as we mentioned, used these stitches in our designs. I use
Mhm.
more the puffs and the clusters, and
Mhm.
Biz uses them all. But you can find all of our designs in our shops, which I assume that we have in the description, so you can link to those at Ravelry and Etsy.
Mhm.
That beautiful blanket right there, my friends, is our memories blanket. That is Biz's version, and it is
Mhm.
stunning.
Oh, yours
It's
is so pretty too.
fabulous. It's just they're both really cool, but
They
this
are.
hers is very dramatic. Um, where is it's that strip right under the squares that have the round centers.
Yeah,
There are your popcorns or bobbles.
those,
They
oh god. I
I think
can't
they might
remember
have
what I
been
call them.
bobbles.
I'm gonna be honest. They're probably they're either popcorns or I might have called them 5 double crochet clusters. I don't know. So, I
But
don't
they
know.
sure do act like our baubles and popcorns.
They sure do.
They are awesome. Yeah, so if you're interested in that, we've got a cal starting on the 19th. The materials and supplies list went out yesterday,
Mhm.
and we both are hosting it in our Facebook groups, and sending out all the emails and giving you all the 411. So I hope you can
Yes.
join us
Yes.
and go look at our shops for all of the beautiful textured stitches that we've talked about
Mhm.
today.
Yeah.
Nice. All
Hello,
right.
there we
That
are again.
we we did that pretty fast, did we not?
We we did. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, we were just explaining stitches, so unless we had a demonstration, I don't think it's gonna go much longer.
All right, I do have a couple of things that we can talk about a little bit. I think we've sprinkled this in amongst the stitches, but what
Mhm.
do these stitches add to the fabric? So,
Mhm.
the cluster and the puff, as we said, those tend to sit a little bit more flush with the fabric.
Mhm.
So, if you're looking for something that's a little more just decorative rather than adding texture, those 2 stitches are probably the ones that you wanna think about using.
Mhm.
Talk about the bobble and popcorn and what you use them for.
Well, the bobble and the popcorn to me, they kind of add drama, and I'm usually so anybody that's familiar with my designs, I do a lot of character-based and story-based blankets. So when I am looking at a stitch, um, especially if I'm doing a character-based blanket, I will say, "Well, okay, how can I use that stitch to explain a character?" So bobbles or not bobbles, but popcorns and things like that. Did you give me bobbles and popcorns? I can't remember which ones you gave me.
You can
Any
talk
of them.
about whichever ones you want.
The ones that stick out a little bit more, I will typically use those for like references to Christmas lights, or I know one of the
Mhm,
blankets I used them as the sheep on a green background, and so those were popcorns. But then things like clusters, they add drama to what you're doing because they create a little, like, I want to say, almost a petal in
mhm.
in their shaping, because they're tight here and then they're chunky and then they're tight, again. So they kind of create this petal, and they give you drama when you're looking for something that has a little bit of splash to it. But as far as like the really ruddy ones, like the popcorn and the bobble, those two for me are the ones that tend to be used the most, just because I'm looking for something to stand out from the blanket.
Mhm. Yeah, you are more familiar with these stitches than I am. Not that I don't make them, but I don't
Mhm.
incorporate them as much in my designs. Now that is starting
Mhm.
to change. I'm starting to incorporate
Yes.
more texture and interest in my designs, which is fun. It's so much fun to go, "Oh, wait, I tried this. Let me try it in my own
It
stuff.
is.
This is great." While I still need to stay true to my
Yes.
mindful, repetitive, relaxing, that's my style, which is a little less dramatic than biz
Mhm.
crochet.
Yeah, crazy, we can just call it what it is. Um, but we've had several hellos from everybody, and I don't wanna leave anybody out, but, like, Dawn, hi, Dawn and Kansas Chicky, glad you're here, and our Facebook user, hi from Central Pennsylvania, and you love this blanket. We are so glad that you love this blanket because we want you to make it and be involved with it too. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, there's so much texture in the blanket that we're using as our cowl, and there's a variety of stitches. But I think of the ones that we're talking about today, I think we only have popcorns in there that are the ones that like stick out from the blanket itself.
You
I'm
know
pretty
what?
sure,
Let
and
me
then
go
you've got your
back so we
cluster,
can
your
see it.
clusters in the ones with the circle, the squares with the circles. Those are where you've got clusters.
Mhm.
Um, Otherwise, we use a lot of different types of stitches to create texture.
We did
There's
a
a
lot
lot
of
of
front post.
lot of front post in there. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. So,
I've
yeah,
got
I it
clusters in those circular granny squares, so we have
yep,
clusters there.
yep,
Um, but yeah, it is chock full. I just
mhm.
learned so much by making this blanket, and mine, I'm gonna cuddle up under it when the weather turns cold again
It's
because it's
so
not warm
pretty.
enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I love mine because I love those colors. Like I'm always
Mhm.
drawn towards the fall tones, the jewel tones, things like that. I always think of it kind of like boho-ish, just because it's not one or the other. But I love yours because it just has that really it's so pretty and it's got that really creamy pastelly, like we said last week, it reminds me of a Victorian, home where just got that really sunshine washed out look to it.
What's fun was I went online to find the yarn that I wanted,
Mhm.
and I've fallen in love with paint box yarns. They just make some really beautiful,
They
not
do.
expensive yarns,
Very
and
accessible.
yeah, so I found a wool mix Aran that's the absolute perfect yarn for the blanket, and I knew I was gonna be buying a bunch, so I went to their 10 pack. They had some color combinations put
Yeah.
together,
Yes.
and this one is called Gelato Dream.
Oh,
So
nice.
it's like cuddling up under a big old pile of ice cream, I guess.
And, I guess now that you say that, it actually kind of reminds me of the washed out beach houses down on the Florida
Uh-huh.
beachfront.
Yeah.
It's very
So,
cute.
it's just a lot of fun to make, just a jaw drop. Both of them are jaw droppers, and I
They are.
cannot
They really
wait to see everybody else's
I
blankets. You
know.
have tester blankets that are
We do,
gorgeous.
and we're beginning to get some finished pictures in, and I'm so excited to show you their versions because all of them, as far as I'm aware, I don't think anybody went out and bought yarn because this design is really designed for you to be able to use your scraps and all of that.
Yes,
So, they just went into their stashes, and as long as you had enough to do your main color, everything else is just whatever you've got. And
and it
because it's
works.
oh, it does, it's so
It's
cute.
crazy.
It's such a fun way to just use up what you have, create something new, be able to work a bunch of different stitches, and, just really, really pull from yourself.
Yeah, and I love the fact that one of the trends that we're seeing in crochet this year, big trend, is using your yarn stash.
Oh, yeah.
Um, we
Like,
just
who
have
has
it.
the money to go and buy yarn all the time anymore?
Well, I do it anyway, and that's bad. And now I'm
I know,
paying
I
the
do too.
price because I'm trying to organize it all, and it's insane. But it's just I love that trend. We can try to use up what we have. It's one of the ways that you can be eco-friendly. Instead of buying more, use what you have, repurpose. If you One of the things that Gabe and I have been finding as we're going through everything is swatches that I've started with a full skein of yarn, and they just sit there. They got tossed into a cubby hole, and now
Oh,
he's
no.
taken it upon himself
Oh, no.
to frog everything and get it put back where it belongs so that I can use it for something else. So,
Nice.
yarn
Very
yarn
helpful.
stash, you're gonna see a whole lot of that this year. Yeah, the
Mhm,
Facebook user
mhm.
says, "It reminds me of a dreamsicle summer day as a kid." Oh gosh, can you please show me how to yarn under instead of yarn over? I
You know what?
wish.
We can link a YouTube video to that only because I don't actually do it,
I
so
don't do that. I honestly, it at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it would disrupt my flow so much, it would hurt.
mhm, yeah.
But it does have a really cool, texture to it.
Yeah, and I've noticed okay, so I don't know if you are at all familiar with the Crochet by Numbers, and I can't remember what his name is, but he's got a whole system, like a class that you take and stuff, and I took his class, and that's actually how he teaches. And so I've done it, but it's super awkward for me. I don't do well at it. So that's why I'm just gonna I'll link a video
Yeah.
in the thing once we're off of here. But because it pulls through and it leaves you a flat stitch. It's not like a normal single crochet. So like if you're doing graph gans or something like that,
Mhm.
doing that yarn under, or what is it? Yeah, yarn
Yarn
under,
under.
the opposite of the way that we do it. Um, it creates a very clean stitch as
Mhm.
opposed to where you get the logs, the little logs from the single crochets. It doesn't look the same. And so if you've got the patience to learn how to do it, that's great. And I did my swatches and I sent it in and I'm doing okay, but boy, oh boy, is it slow. And you know me, I just so someday I may finish the course just because I haven't finished the course. And I do actually want to use it, but it's tedious for me because I just don't have the patience for it. Not
Yeah,
that it's not
Lynn,
a
I think it's a great thing to learn how to do because if you make a smaller project, I think it would be to get the look that you want, it would be a good
mhm,
thing to know how to do. But
mhm.
yarn over is that, yarn under would be that. I think you come
Yeah,
from
you're
behind,
just
don't
literally
you?
just pulling it through.
Just reversing it, yeah.
Yeah. So if you're used to sticking it in and just bloop, 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 but so when you put it in, you've got to be like, oh, okay, wait, no, I got to go this way and pull it through. It just it just took so much brain power for me to just stop and think it through. Now you do begin to get a rhythm, and I'm sure that if I
Right.
actually sat down and did a project and made myself just behave myself, I could do it. But I tend to be very impatient.
Yeah, and, me, I'm like, "All right, what am I watching?" I can actually not look at my project and get it
Yes,
done without making mistakes, so
yes.
yarn under would change that, but it's definitely worth trying.
It is, for sure, and
Definitely
we should
worth
always be
trying.
challenging ourselves to learn new things.
Oh my gosh, I am right there with you, Biz. I highly recommend that everybody that's how you get to be a better crocheter,
Yes.
is to always challenge yourself. I think,
Mhm,
we're marketing our memories blanket as an intermediate blanket at least,
mhm,
and it is, but it's giving you the opportunity to try so many different techniques and
mhm,
stitch patterns that by the time you're done, you're definitely gonna be a better crocheter.
mhm. And
So it
it's my
has
personal
benefits.
mission anytime I put out any kind of cowl or blanket or anything like that is that it's my goal for you as a beginner, even if you're like a really beginner. And that's why I usually do videos for my crochet alongs. Now, there isn't going to be a set of videos for this one, just because there's two designers doing this. And um, a lot of this is very, very simple. It's just, you're going to have to think like the stuff that you don't know. If you've got questions, just come ask us.
Yeah,
Um, but the one that is real, like it's got, really thick instructions, that one has a video for it so that you can just get the rhythm of it because it's one of those ones that once you know it, it's very, very simple. But getting into it, it feels daunting. So I don't want anybody to be scared away. You know, there's going to be at least one. And I know we've got other video links in there too to show you how to do stitches that we're referencing that you might not know.
right. So you still will have all of the resources that you need,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
it will require some diligent due diligence and patience.
Yes. We wanna
But
grow
it's
you. We
so
want you guys to
but it's
challenge
so much fun.
yourselves. Oh, it
Mhm.
is, it is. I love it.
All right. Puffs,
All right.
bobbles, popcorns, and clusters all solved. Now it's time,
Da, da,
Biz.
da.
What have you been watching this week?
Okay, so this week I have continued to watch my people's investigations show, but I have also, um, watched the Doctor Death, There's 2
Ooh,
documentaries,
do
2
tell.
different Dr. Deaths, both crazy. And they're both on Peacock. And so the Dr. Death that is like the TV show, there's like a TV show or something that's called Dr. Death. That one is about the guy who is from, I think, God, is it Italy? I can't remember what his accent is, but he is based out of a laboratory in, I think, Sweden. So what his thing is he was doing surgeries on people with trachea issues, and he had created this um synthetic trachea that he was putting into these people. And I'm not going to tell you anymore because it will give away everything, but it's extremely interesting. Like my heart breaks for some of these people. But the other Dr. Death is a guy in Texas who for I want to say 5 3 to 5 years was doing these back surgeries on people. Didn't know what he was doing. I mean, and the Texas Board of Medical Board would not address it, would not take away his license, basically because they were afraid of getting sued by him. But like, he killed people, he maimed people, he just it was unbelievable. So, I don't wanna give any more away from that either, because if you are gonna go watch it, they're really, really interesting, though, and that's the thing, it's like they tell a really good story. So, if you're looking for stuff that's, like, not super gory and you're not looking for true crime, but you're interested in documentaries, those are 2 really good ones, and they're both called Dr. Death. The Dr.
Oh
Death
gosh.
in the United States is called Dr. Death Undoctored, and then the other one is I don't know, it's just Dr. Death.
The one that about the Texas doctor, that's with Mandy Moore, right?
No, no, it's not a show, it's a documentary,
Oh,
and,
gotcha.
yeah,
Because
it's
there
a
is a Dr. Death show.
yes, and so the Dr. Death show is the one from the guy in Sweden.
Oh,
That's
gotcha.
what
Okay.
yeah, that's what that one's about because I had to look that up because I had the same question. I'm like, "So which one are we referring to here?" Um, but they do a really good job as far as the guy that does the acting for the Doctor Death. He looks very similar to the man who actually is. So, yeah, just nuts.
Yeah, that sounds like another show. I've been very interested in watching the one with Mandy Moore, and I'm
Mhm.
sure it's one that I would have to watch while my husband was out doing yard work.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
he looks at it and goes, "Ew, why do you watch
Yeah,
that?"
yeah, I as soon as Tony walks through the door, I just shut the stuff off because none of the people in my life are interested in documentaries, and I just get sucked in. To me, it's like a TV show.
You are a sucker for those.
I am. I am.
No, we
I
are
love
still
information.
plugging away through, excuse me, the ends of seasons because, oh, thank the good Lord, the seasons are gonna start up next week.
Oh my
I
gosh!
know.
Already?
Yeah, some of them are gonna come back at the end of February, but I've just been trying to catch up on that kind of stuff. We'll watch the Super Bowl, and then
Mhm.
the Phillies just headed to, spring training, so
Mm.
that's gonna start up before long, so
Yes.
I need to get in all my dramas before baseball is the only
Before
thing on
baseball takes
TV.
over your life again?
Yeah, yeah, it's not like we don't have more than one TV in the house,
Oh, that's
please,
so funny. That's funny. Yeah, and
but
then when Tony and I are together, because we he doesn't wanna watch the trash reality TV anymore, so we've been binge watching
oh.
The Worst Cooks in America on the Food Network,
Oh,
and, that one is we started over at the beginning because 'cause we've watched all the seasons, but, it's one of those ones where it's funny and, you get to watch people cook, and we have actually learned so much watching those. We love to cook, and we're becoming these, like, weird little nerd foodies, and so we actually learn quite a bit by watching them teach them how to do stuff. And we're like,
instead
"Hey,
of
that doesn't look hard."
I could do that.
Exactly. It's kinda fun.
Uh, oh my gosh. Well, that takes care of what we're watching. I'm sure there are other things. I'm so far behind on Young and the Restless, we can't even talk about that,
Oh
but
my gosh, I wouldn't even know. It's been so many years since I've watched any of those. I think Guiding Light was my last one, and that was when Stephanie was 3, and she's 29 now, so
well, I used to sit down at lunchtime and take the hour. So it was but I don't have the hour anymore. So I record them all, and I think I'm 100 episodes behind.
oh my gosh, yeah, it's gonna be a bit. Lynn
All
has got
right.
to go. It is late there. Dawn
Oh
is looking
gosh,
forward to the
yes.
cow. And Neve brought up a good point. She said sometimes the stitches with the long explanations that look daunting actually turn out to be quite easy after you've done a few. You're absolutely right.
Yep, I found that to be true.
Yeah.
So, I
All
think we're
righty.
gonna call it a day, and we're gonna
Yes.
Biz and I are gonna get back to work on getting everything ready for the cow because
Yeah.
the full pattern releases next Thursday if we can get our act together.
It'll be together.
Oh, well, we hope so. We'll try. Anyway, we hope to see you in our Facebook groups and on
Yes.
YouTube and everywhere we hang out. And we
Yes.
have had a blast hanging out with you today.
Yes.
So
Thank you for joining
check
us.
out all the puffs, bobbles, popcorns, and clusters you can. Check out our designs. Check out all the things. If you've never
Mhm.
tried them, definitely choose a pattern and give it a try
Yes,
because they are such cool stitches. And we
they
hope you've
are.
learned something today.
Mhm.
So, from me, see you later, and Biz, have
Everybody
a
have a great
great,
weekend.
great weekend. Bye, everybody.